You one day in a little toy shop, buy a bag of balloons with the money we got, set them free at the break of dawn, till one by one they were gone. Back at base, bugs in the software flash the message, something's out there, floating in the summer sky. 99 red balloons go by. It's red alert, there's something here from somewhere else. The war machine springs to life, opens up one eager eye, focusing it on the sky where 99 red balloons go by. 99 Decision Street, where 99 ministers meet to worry, super scurry, call the troops out in a hurry. This is what we've waited for, this is it boys, this is war. The president is on the line as 99 red balloons go by. Nights of the year, right? Super high-tech jet fighters. Everyone's a superhero. Everyone's a Captain Kirk, with orders to identify, to clarify and classify. Scramble in the summer sky as 99 red balloons go by. As 99 red balloons go by. 99 dreams I have had, in every one a red balloon. It's all over and I'm standing pretty in this dust that was a city. If I could find a souvenir just to prove the world was here, and here is a red balloon, I cry for peace and let it go.
If there was but 100 of us remained alive, never would we under any condition be part of anybody's new world order. It is, in truth, not for honor, nor for glory, certainly not for riches that we are fighting, but for freedom. For that one thing alone which no honest person would give up save with life itself. Once we were warrior poets, but for now we must stand for peace, but make no mistake. If you hear my voice, you are part of the resistance, and our time is coming. I'm being cooked like a microwave in this sunny room, guys. Alex, Glenn, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's a bit cooler here today, so we're not too bad. But
yeah, absolutely fine. Thanks. Ian. Looking forward to this show as always, and all the revelations that it brings.
And you managed to get some fishing in despite being
A
a
little bit
very
of
busy
fishing
man
done
these
yesterday.
days.
Yeah, yeah. Not entirely successful, but a good day out anyway, and a good laugh. So yeah, it was good.
Well, I guess, I mean, I'm not quite right. Let's start with the earth changes for a change because it gets bleaker after that. Just trust me. UVC is off the charts. That's why I started by I'm being cooked like a microwave. My phone, my weather app on my phone is now giving me regular UV updates. And that in itself is a sign of the times. UVC is the most damaging kind, the kind that should be filtered out by the ozone, but more and more it's getting to the planet's surface. UVC is the thing that shuts off plant stigmatas, stops the whole process of turning carbon dioxide into oxygen, stops plants from reproducing, sterilizes soil, and helps kill insects, among other things. It wouldn't have escaped anyone's attention that in the last week we have had masses, and I mean masses, of earthquakes all around the Ring of Fire. Dozens of them considered to be big earthquakes. That's anything over a 5.0 is a big earthquake. Of course, everyone's talking about the one in Venezuela. What isn't being talked about so much is that coinciding with that, there was a massive coronal hole on the sun that was directly Earth facing. That coronal hole was firing in massive amounts of solar radiation directly onto the planet. The planet itself was reacting to that. That's why we had these earthquakes. That's why these earthquakes are continuing. That's why volcanic activity has taken another uptick, including Mount Etna, Kilauea in Hawaii, et al. The chemistry of the sun is changing, all of which is indicative of an incoming brown dwarf. But let's lay that to the side for a moment. The Earth is literally splitting apart. If you do a bit of research, you'll find there is a huge fissure opening up in Western Africa, down all of Africa. There is another huge fissure opening up in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The easiest I can put it to you is this, that as the Earth is absorbing all this energy, it can't get rid of it all in its normal fashion. And so, in an attempt to equalize, it's expanding. And when you expand something, cracks and fissures are bound to open. Does that make sense, Alex, Glenn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does, yeah.
I always say there's a reason for the season. So let's now get to the season. I'm going to start on the Russian front. Russia is undoubtedly gaining ground. Its summer offensive is speeding up. They are less than 10 kilometers from the city of Zaporizhia. They are they've taken Liman and the other place. They're less than 10 clicks from the last major stronghold in the Donbass, and the Donbass will be fully liberated. They have been shooting off ballistic missiles straight into Kiev. They've been destroying military targets left, right, and center. They're decimating the drone production facilities in Ukraine. That's why they're all being made in the EU now. And they're even going after the Ukrainian ability to launch Storm Shadow, Scalp, or the German one. They took out 2 MiG-29s this last week using Gran 2 drone, and Sukhoi 35 just set a record by taking out a third MiG-29 at a distance of 190 kilometers. Think about that. Almost 200 kilometers away from its target, Sukhoi 35 target locked on an aircraft and shot it down. That's impressive. However, Ukraine, and when I say Ukraine, I mean the UK, British High Command, are launching a 40-day terror attack on Crimea. What's the point in that? It's bringing pain to Russian civilians in Crimea. It's Moorhouse, that's better than the F-22, so that's better than an F-22. They're bringing pain on Russian civilians in Crimea. They're causing shortages of fuel. They're doing pinprick attacks, hitting buses full of kids. And it's all designed as a smokescreen. Because 2 things of note have also happened. One is that NATO, or 3 things of note, NATO has been recruiting South American, especially Colombian mercenaries, and there's an army of about 8,000 of them that they're about to throw into the field in an attempt to stop the Russian advances, maybe in an attempt to do a counter-offensive. Credible reports suggest that a ship who landed at Odessa carried with it British enriched uranium. Some of the things we're going to talk about later in the show may well tie into that. But you can bet your bottom dollar if Germany, France, and Britain, the so-called E3, are thinking about giving Ukraine a nuclear weapon and saying they built it themselves, Russia's all over it like a fucking rash, and Russia will eliminate that before it ever comes to pass. Marco Rubio has made it plain that the spirit of Anchorage, whatever that was, is dead, that no agreements were made in Anchorage, and that the US is now admittedly part of the proxy war against Russia. And then we have all the threats against Belarus, which is why Lukashenko and Putin have been in closed-door meetings for the last 3 days without any press, talking about how they're going to react. I don't know about anyone else, but none of that sounds particularly good to me. Alex, what do you think?
No, nothing sounds good on that. When you hear Putin speak now, He sounds increasingly more like Medvedev. And when we get to that level, you know that he's catching up with what the people of Russia are thinking and what the people are calling for. I don't see any de-escalation in where we are. I don't see any off-ramp. The NATO and the UK and Ukraine have not wanted an off-ramp in it anyway, but Russia are seem to more and more getting to the point that they know it's going to have to happen. They know they're going to have to fight the whole of NATO, and they are ready to do it and to finish what they started in many ways.
Well, Putin recently gave a speech to a cadet class of officers from their officer training, and told them that NATO was preparing, basically I'm paraphrasing, but that NATO was preparing Operation Barbarossa Part 2, and that they were going to have to fight NATO. Glenn, it's not looking good, my friend, is it?
No, and we've fallen into this inevitability. All the language, all the signs are all around us. It's as if, we're being funneled slowly but surely, and these days not quite so slowly. We're being funneled towards that inevitable war. All our politicians do is I was watching Question Time the other day. Now, I'm not one for watching the BBC, but I do sometimes watch Question Time online. And the main talking point that the Tory guy that they had on, I don't know who the hell he is, was that what this country needs to do is drastically cut welfare in order to fund our military. And I was watching it with Jackie, and her first response was, to fight who? And I said, well, Russia, of course. That's what we're gearing up for. And she said, well, why should that be inevitable? Why should that be where we are being dragged towards? We're all going to have to make sacrifices in order to fucking fight Russia. It just makes no sense whatsoever. But this is where we are, unfortunately.
We are already in World War III, and it's there's no point in trying to sugarcoat a steaming turd anymore. And the US is playing fast and loose with the world economy as well. We have a resumption of the war with Iran. We have the US trying to pressure Oman into opening up a passage next to the Omani coast. Iran said, oh no, you fucking don't, and shot at a couple of tankers, left them burning, sinking. So Trump ordered attacks on Iranian territory that are now intensifying. Iran has responded by wiping out what was left of the US Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, attacking Kuwait, attacking the UAE, and no doubt attacking Israel before long. Now Trump's ranting all over Truth Social about he's back to how he's going to wipe Iran off the face of the map. And in the meantime, in the background, they're pulling shenanigans. So, Glenn, why don't you tell people about what you were looking at?
Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned that there's sort of goings on this week because on Thursday, as we mentioned, a Singapore registered container ship called the Ever Lovely, because it belongs to I think it belongs to a huge corporation called the Evergreen Corporation, Chinese, I think. That was supposedly struck by a drone as it passed through the Straits of Hormuz. Now, no one on board was injured. and the ship sailed on. I think it struck the bridge superstructure, but no one was injured. Now, in response to this, Trump was he came out with a statement where he called it a foolish violation of the memorandum of understanding, and then took the opportunity on Friday to bomb the port city. Oh goodness, what's the name of that place? I can't remember what the name of it. It's right on the Straits of Hormuz, where it basically had accused the Iranians of sending the drone from, and of it being a center for drone and missile production. And Iran responded in kind by, as you say, by striking bases in the region, saying that it had done so because the US had violated its own ceasefire. Now that was Thursday, and the bombings took place on Friday. Now on Saturday morning, yesterday morning, around 4:30 a.m., a Panama-flagged oil tanker called the Kiku was struck by an unknown object. Once again, no crew members were injured, and there was no leakage of oil on the ship. And the US CENTCOM then launched airstrikes once again in the same area, and also on Qasem Island, in the Straits. And so Iran then struck targets in Bahrain and Kuwait in drone and missile attacks. And then Trump posted that the US strikes could be the precursor to more intense fighting. And he criticized Iran once again for violating the ceasefire memorandum. And he said, it's very possible that they will never learn. They may come a point when we are no longer able to be reasonable, and we will be forced to militarily complete the job that we very successfully started. If that happens, he said, the Islamic Republic Iran will no longer exist. Now, this is all very reminiscent of all his rhetoric, all his bluster that he's come out with in the past, having sunk the Iranian fleet several times over, destroyed Iranians' capabilities, ballistic missile capabilities several times over. And the US CENTCOM said in a statement, Iran's dangerous behavior undermined freedom of navigation as commerce increasingly flows through the vital trade corridor. Now, in a counter statement, Iran stated on its government news service, in the event of repeated aggression, our response will be more extensive than what they did. So in all senses, it looks like the gears of war are beginning to churn again if this cannot be stopped, this inevitable tit-for-tat escalation. So that's what happened. But what exactly is going on? Well, Ian just mentioned that. Well, Iran says it struck the container ship, the Ever Lovely, because it was using an unauthorized route through the Straits of Hormuz, stating that the only authorized routes was the northern corridor, which is in Iranian territorial waters. And this is all to do with the memorandum of understanding that I laid out on Friday, because in that, I think it's point 5, paragraph 5, it's a little bit vague. It talks about arrangements being made between Iran and Oman about where the ships will be passing through, sort of how it will be conducted. But as well on Wednesday, Iran forced 4 tankers using the southern route in Omani waters to turn back on that same day. Now, shipping companies are all well aware of the transit requirements, and Iran has guaranteed the safety of ships using the Northern Corridor out of the Persian Gulf. So what's going on? Who's advising or who's authorizing for ships to use the Southern Corridor? Well, in a way, it's the UN, because the UN has set up and it is coordinating what it calls the evacuation southern route, and that is on the southern side through Omani waters. But it seems that this is either not working, or there has actually been no real agreement with Iran on this matter. Now, transits through the Strait dropped from 70 on Wednesday to 54 on Thursday, and by Saturday, there were only 40 transits were going through the Straits. So that's what's kind of how it's affected it. In other news, Israel has continued to strike southern Lebanon, and this is amid a deal with the Lebanese government that would see the Lebanese army assume control of 2 areas in the south with Israel's permission, as long as they agree to continue to try to disarm Hezbollah. Now, this has been mooted as part of a staged withdrawal of Israeli forces. However, the Netanyahu government have indicated that it might remain in Lebanon regardless of whether Hezbollah is defeated or not. We're certainly there until Hezbollah disarms, and I think also beyond that, because we need defendable borders. That's what Netanyahu said. Smotrich said earlier in the week. And Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, yesterday said he and Netanyahu have instructed Israeli forces to prepare for an extended stay. All of this, of course, is contra to the Memorandum of Understanding, which requires Lebanon to regain its sovereignty and what's called territorial integrity. According to the wording. Now, this deal seems to me to be a cynical attempt by Israel and its US backers to kind of wriggle round the deal, wriggle round the wording of sovereignty, of control of southern Lebanon, by sort of saying it's being handed back to the control of the Lebanese government, without actually withdrawing any of its forces. So they're the sort of 2 main parts of what's been going on this week. Obviously, there's been deals with Turkey and engines, and there's a lot going on that front, but that's for future. So they are the sort of 2 big stories that have come out of that region this week.
And you on your Man in Black show, Glenn, have previously done amazing shows on the root causes of the civil wars in Lebanon.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what the Israelis came out. They said it. They said it boldly. This move, this deal is designed to create a civil war in Lebanon. Because if they're fighting each other, they can't be fighting Israel and they can't be supporting Iran. Got me?
Yeah.
And then we wake this morning to this news that the green zone in Iraq is once more a war zone. That protesters attempted to storm the US embassy. Why? Because the US have gotten the new puppet prime minister of Iraq to purge government officials who are pro-Iranian. They don't want Iraq helping Iran in the coming war.
No.
They want to use Iraqi airspace in the coming war. They're hell bent and I mean that literally, on taking us all into one, an oil shock. Because trust me, people, those of you that don't believe me when I tell you the rationing's coming, it's coming. A major financial crisis is looming, a depression that will make the 1929 stock market crash look like a fucking baby's toy. And everything that comes with that: unemployment, starvation, desperation, empty shelves, dust bowls, El Ninos. Oh, yes, people, it's all coming down the line. Alex, sugarcoat something.
Not sure I can at the moment. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. They're determined to turn one or other, or probably both of the fronts, because they are more fronts than distinct wars anymore, into a complete world war, hot world war. And they're not going to stop until they drag everybody in and everybody down with them. And Israel just thinks, and Israel and the US just think they can dictate the terms of the entire region. They can control what the entire region does within their own countries and who is in power, just the same as they feel like they can dictate within Europe and within the rest of the world who's allowed to stand, who's allowed to remain in a government position. They just believe they have that level of control, and while they can continue to find puppets in these countries, they will continue to have that level until continue to call out the shots on who can do anything. And people just keep letting them.
Well, yes, they do, up to a point.
Yeah.
And the thing which perturbs me, because you're right, they're different fronts now. It's just we've got to see it as a world war now with different fronts. What perturbs me is, as I called Wednesday's show, beware the wrath of a patient man. I think it was the Tory Graph, your favourite paper, Alex, have come out with an article of how dangerous is a drowning man, because they're trying to flip the narrative that Putin's in trouble, everyone hates Putin, everything's falling apart, all the nonsense that they tried before. But it amounts to the same thing. Russia is going to have to do something that demonstrates to the lunatics in the collective West that if they carry on what they're doing now, it's going to lead to thermonuclear world fucking war. Is that about right, Glenn?
It certainly seems to be the direction that that doesn't even seem very unpopular. We're already in a situation. The reason these wars drag on now is because there's no will to stop them. They're just being used as a vehicle to constantly escalate. Somebody wrote in the comments a minute ago that the Germans are talking about turning car factories into drone factories. Absolutely. That is we're looking at a kind of the kind of upscaling that we saw during World War II. That's the kind of upscaling our European leaders want to see. They want to turn our economies into wartime economies very, very quickly because they have got a timetable, which is, around about 2030, 2029, 2030. They want us to be embroiled in a war with Russia, and they desperately need to keep the Ukrainian conflict going as the as the vehicle through which to achieve that. And at the same time, the Israelis do not want the conflict with Iran to cease. They have their own agenda and they have their own leverage on the Trump administration, and they are damned absolutely sort of hell bent that they will not comply. They will keep the pressure on Iran, and they will keep the pressure on America. And we saw how long this memorandum of understanding seemed to last. And I see Israel's hand in all of that. But yeah, these conflicts could even conflate into one giant conflict. It's not that far. Nowhere's that far anymore. Everywhere is within ballistic missile range. So we're sitting here quite comfortably in our various locations, but all of us are well within reach of ballistic and nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles. So, yeah, the future's not looking bright on that front, or any front.
No, it's not. And we're about to transition into the second part of today's show, the lone gunman part. I very seldom do this. People get fucking shady, because this lone gunman is going to be one of the most important shows that we have ever done, if I can do it properly and tie up some knots for you. So stay with us. But the caveat before I get Alex to play the song to transition us is none of us are suicidal. Are you? You're not suicidal, are you, going, Alex? No.
No.
Anyway. Because this show may well be the one that puts us well and truly in their crosshairs. Be that as it may, we're going to do it anyway. So stick with us, enjoy the song, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
See him wasted in the saddle. He comes riding through your town. He's wearing yesterday's misfortunes like a smile. Once he had a future full of money, love, and dreams, but he spent like it was going out of style. But he just keeps on believing that for better or for worse, he's searching for a shrine he's never found. Never knowing if believing is a lesson or a curse, or if going up is worth coming down. He's a poet and a picker. He's a prophet and a pusher. He's a pilgrim and a preacher, and a problem when he's stoned. He's this walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction. He's taken every wrong direction on a lonely road back home. He has tasted good and evil in the bedrooms and the bars. He's traded in tomorrows for today. He's running from his demons and he's reaching for the stars, leaving everything he's loved along the way. And the world just keeps on turning, so for better or for worse, all he ever gets is older and around. From the rocking of his cradle to the rolling of the hearse, going up's not worth coming down. But he's a poet and a picker. He's a prophet and a pusher. He's a pilgrim and a preacher, and a problem when he's stoned. He's this walking contradiction, partly truth, he's partly fiction. He's taking every wrong direction on a lonely road back home.
I'm late. Welcome, pilgrims. We know you must be truly exhausted, because I am, of traversing a world which has truly gone fucking insane. The internet is full of shysters, shoosters, AI frauds, people that want you to buy them a coffee or be their patron or give you your money, which you can't afford anyway. Put a penny in my hat, Galloway. People that take our content, our research, and dissimulate it. Well, that's okay, we don't care. By chance or accident, or maybe intentional, you have found your way here this afternoon. And the information that you're going to receive this afternoon should start to bring everything sharply into focus as to why we're in the shit show that we're in. So, have a seat by the campfire, pour yourself a beverage, make it fucking adult, trust me, you're going to need it. Roll yourself something warm and brown and golden to get you through the day, because this afternoon, the lone gunman is going to ride again. Alex Glenn, we called this lone gunman the Octopus and the Zionazis, Part 1. The Zionazi, you say. Yes, Zionazi, I say, because you cannot pull the two apart. And that's hopefully what you're going to see today. Now, up front, I expect you to understand by the time we're finished this afternoon what's going on with the geopolitics, the missing scientists that we've covered, Elon Musk, SpaceX, Nazi paperclip, Nazi influence, and the Fourth fucking Reich, which isn't rising, has arisen, and now is in control of the entire Western world. And maybe one or two other things along the way. So, are you up for this, you guys? I think I gave you quite interesting homework this week, did I not, Glenn?
Yeah, it was good. And every little helps, as Tesco like to say. So it's all part of the big picture, which not only has been built this week, last week, it's part of a big picture that's been coming together for years, really. Years. Because the themes sometimes sound familiar, but they come from different angles and they show different aspects of what is essentially one animal. A little bit like three blind guys feeling an elephant. That's what's been going on.
Exactly so. Or three blindfolded guys feeling an elephant.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And we're about to rip the blindfold off. So, well, let's get started. And Alex, let's start with you. Tell people what I asked you to look at today and what you found. And then I might throw in a few things at the end of that. But you go ahead and start today's proceedings, please, Alex.
Okay, no worries. Well, I've been looking at a gentleman called Kurt Davis, or Kurt Debus, as he appears in most of the documentation. Now, it's this guy here, and he was born in 1908 in Frankfurt, and he grew up during the First World War and did most of his studying. He took his degrees in electrical engineering, a couple of degrees in that during the interwar period. Now, his
And I
engineering...
love his fencing scar. That complete Nazi, that fencing scar, isn't it?
Oh,
Fueling scar, yeah.
But his engineering doctorate, which he received in 1939, was awarded by the Technische Universität in Darmstadt, and that was the first university worldwide to actually set up a chair in electrical engineering. Now, Debus completed his doctorate with a thesis on surge voltages. Now, while he was still a student, he actually became or joined the SA, which was colloquially known as the Brown Shirts. And he's reported to have been a member of the Nazi Party by World War II and having joined the SS in 1940. Now, Debus was appointed by Hitler as the V-Weapons Flight Test Director, and he was in charge of the Test Stand 7 at Peenemünde. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but anyway. At the end of the war, now, Kurt, with a small group of V2 engineers, including von Braun's brother, they sought out and on May the 2nd, 1945, surrendered to the advancing American 44th Infantry Division. Now, he briefly served as a technical and diplomatic liaison between the German rocket engineers and the British during what was called Operation Backfire. Now, Operation Backfire was an Allied operation in the last days of the war, and it was basically designed to evaluate the V2 rocket assembly, and it basically part of the including things like the Fedden mission and Operation Surgeon, etc. It was focused on the acquisition of German technology into the for the Allies. Now, it involved the launching of 3 or 4 rockets from a test pad near Cuxhaven, which was in the British occupation zone. And Debus and a number of his equivalents were involved with this British operation, like I say, on a liaison basis. Now, following on from this cooperation, Debus was transferred to Fort Bliss in Texas as a special employee, it was classed, of the US Army, and this was along with a number of other of the paperclip Nazis. In 1948, he was the deputy director at the Guidance and Control Branch, and later being promoted to assistant technical director to von Braun. Now, this was at the Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. Now, throughout the 1950s and the 1960s, or the very early part of 1960, the arsenal became something called the focal point of the US Army's rocket and space projects, with Debus supervising the space projects program of the guided missile branch, and also the construction of rocket launch facilities at Cape Canaveral for the Redstone, for the Jupiter, Jupiter C, Juno, and Pershing missiles programs. Now, in 1961, the organization basically were redirected and transferred to the control of NASA. And Debus directed the design, development, and construction of NASA's Saturn launch facilities. Now, in 1962, he was installed as the first director of their Launch Operations Center in Florida. Now, this is what later was renamed, or the following year was renamed as the John F. Kennedy Space Center. And he was installed as their first director. Now, during which time he oversaw 4 Mercury orbital missions, numerous Saturn launches, including the Apollo 7 mission, which was the first manned flight with a crew, and that was in 1968, and the Apollo 11, which was the purported moon landings in 69, as well as launching of satellites and meteorological and communication satellites and lunar and planetary probes. Now, throughout his career, he received many awards and honours, from honorary degrees to civilian service medals, and he even had a conference facility at the KSC visitor complex and an award named after him. The Dr. Kurt Debus conference facility was quietly renamed last year in 2025, but the award is still presented every spring. Now, NASA itself still plays down Debus's Nazi past, suggesting he never joined the Nazi Party, that his SS membership may have only been provisional, that it may have never been finalised. And yet he's known to have reported a colleague back in back when he was still serving in Germany, Richard Kramer, for criticising Hitler and the Nazi Party and for having him charged under the treachery law. His history in the brown shirts is somewhat harder to ignore, and the whole mentality of the era can be considered, well, I think kind of said at the start, to be written across his face, because the whole practice of Mensa or academic fencing was popular in the elite German and Austrian universities. The object was less about winning and more about standing your ground, and the resulting facial wounds were often stuffed with horsehair to increase the prominence, to make them more noticeable. Now, this wasn't unique to the Nazis, and indeed in the later years it became a banned practice by the Nazi Party. But they were very much prevalent in the upper ranks, and they have, to the point that they've become known as Nazi dueling scars. Now, most people nowadays have heard of Operation Paperclip. I do still wonder, though, quite how many of the average man on the street realizes just how high and into how many positions of power the paperclip Nazis eventually rose. And Kurt Debus is one prime example of that rise.
Well, thank you, Alex. Yes, I chose him specifically because actually, out of that one paperclip Nazi, we can learn a hell of a lot. Now, Kurt Debus was a close associate of von Braun. In 1947. Oh, what happened in 1947? Anyone? Roswell, yes, of course, Roswell. Also in 1947, it was the creation of the CIA, but we'll get to that when Glenn brings his piece to the table. But US Army counterintelligence, which was its own branch at the time, they were rather concerned about all these paperclip Nazis because they had concluded that what these Nazis had done was they had duplicated their entire chain of command, as was in Nazi Germany, and had taken positions within that chain of command structure that were identical to the ones they had in Nazi Germany. Now, the US Army Counterintelligence also opened a case file on Dr. Kurt Davis. You see, it's interesting, isn't it? Kurt Davis, as you pointed out, Alex, his speciality wasn't in rocket science. His speciality was in high voltage pressure monitoring and plasma. Plasma, yes, plasma. Where have you heard that before? And the chap who he denounced to the Gestapo in 1942 was Richard Kramer, as you said. Now, the thing is that nothing ever really came of his detention by the Gestapo. Why? Because, you ready for this? A Dr. Abraham Azal, that's a very Nazi sounding fucking name, don't you think not? But he wrote to the Gestapo demanding the immediate release of Richard Kramer, colleague of Davis, follow me. And he did so on the headed notepaper of the Allgemeines Elektronik Gesellschaft, and under the direct authority of none other than Reichsmarshal Göring. In the letter, in the letter, Abraham Azal, very Nazi sounding name, states to the Gestapo under the authority of Göring that what Kramer is working on, and therefore by association what Davis is working on, was Kriegsentscheidung, war decisive. Oh, now, when you link the Allgemeines Elektronik with war decisive weapons, which are higher classified than the atomic bomb, it takes us to a factory in Poland, ostensibly set up to produce artificial rubber, for which Nazi Germany already had patents, which was drawing, and oh, by the way, used slave labor from a concentration camp, which was drawing more electricity than the whole fucking of Berlin, and where they were working on a little thing called, anyone want to guess? Alex, you want to guess at this point?
Ding, ding, ding.
It's gone blank. Mine's gone blank, but it's
Give me a
ringing.
clue,
It's ringing bells, but I forget where we end up.
I'll give you a clue. Ding, ding, ding.
It's ringing bells.
Oh, yeah.
The Nazi bell.
Yeah.
Der Glock.
Yeah.
So we now know Kurt Davis was not just a nice Nazi, he was a dyed-in-the-fucking-wool SS scientist working on war decisive der Glock technology. Funny choice to put into the US's rocket program. To be made senior flight director at NASA for all the Apollo missions. And here's a little tidbit. When he retired, or shortly before when he retired from being senior flight director, he was put in charge of NASA's, guess what? UFO desk. Oh, funny, that, coinky dinky, that. Then, when he retires from NASA about the same time as von Braun, they both end up living in a place in Alabama. Any ideas where that might be going?
What's in Alabama?
We've covered it recently.
Now go on, enlighten me. Can't remember.
Missing scientists, Huntsville,
Oh.
Alabama.
Yeah.
Rocket City.
Yeah.
Where General McCausland?
Yeah.
He was in Huntsville, wasn't he?
Huntsville.
Now, von Braun, when he retires from NASA in 72, he goes on to work at Fairchild Industries. Oh, what were Fairchild Industries up to? When Kurt Davis retires from NASA, he goes on to the board of a little thing called Octops. I can't remember the German for Octops, but it was basically a cheap commercial rocket program. You could call it SpaceX Part 1. Okay. Now, most people think that Israel got its nuclear bomb from the United States. No, it did steal a lot of things, technologies from the United States. But Israel and South Africa, South Africa now, do we have a German connection there? Well, maybe. South Africa and Israel got their nuclear weapons from Germany. Germany, like Japan, is a turnkey nuclear power. They have all the abilities and precision tooling to make a nuclear bomb. They could probably do it in half an hour without anybody knowing. Otras, whilst ostensibly going bankrupt in the late 70s, had a compound inside the Congo that no less a figure than Gorbachev called West Germany's Area 51. And what were they doing in this compound in the Congo? They were developing little things like bioweapons, like the biolabs in Ukraine, cruise missiles, like the ones that Germany's giving to Ukraine, that, by the way, was utterly outlawed from West Germany doing under the Articles of Surrender in World War II. Another missing scientist from, oh, and by the way, during Trump's first term, when he created, in his words, another Space Force, well, what are you talking about, Trump? You didn't have a Space Force before the one you created, did you? Did you? So when he said we're going to create another Space Force, he tried to have that moved out of COG control from Mount Weatherfield in Colorado to guess where? Can we all say it together? Huntsville, Alabama. Now, that was resisted in his first term, but now in the second term, bada bing, wouldn't you know it? Guess where Space Command is being relocated to? Huntsville, fucking Alabama, baby. And just before I unleash Glenn with the next part of the little puzzle that we're going to show, one of the scientists who recently went missing, a lady called Amy Eskridge, if you remember her, died under mysterious circumstances not that long ago. In one of her interviews, she said her family were Nazi paper clippers and that Huntsville, Alabama was the biggest secret you'd never heard about. And she claimed that McClandish's death was because he wasn't willing to play ball. Just a little bit of sprinkles on your cake there, Alex. Yeah, Kurt Davis was an interesting guy. So come on, Glenn.
Okay.
Tell folks what you were looking at, what you found, please.
All right. Well, we're already knee deep in sprinkles, so we might as well throw some more. Okay. So for this week's show, I've been looking at into Reinhard Galen. This guy here at slide 1. There he is. There's Reinhard Galen. On out you go. The dog promptly decides to go out, and he was born in 1902, and he was born into what you might call, definitely call a military family. Most of the men in his family had been career officers in the Prussian army and later the German army, and Reinhard was no exception whatsoever. As soon as he was able to, in 1920, he took the entrance exam and he was commissioned into the Reichswehr, the Reich Defense. Now, at this time, obviously, Germany was under the Weimar Republic, and he remained in the army. And so by the time of Hitler's rise to power, he was already a high, he was already an army officer. In 1935, he was promoted to the German equivalent of captain, and he was appointed to the German General Staff. Now, it's during that time that he developed his skills in espionage and what you might call fieldcraft. And by 1942, he was a major, and he was given command of a unit called the Fremdenheer Ost, or the Foreign Armies East, where we can see the officers of that division here, that unit at slide 2. So here they are. Now, this was a military intelligence organization, and it was one specialized and dedicated to penetrating Russian lines. And as a fervent anti-communist, Galen really excelled at this work, and he produced many, many key reports that helped the army push back the Soviets. But even as Hitler, by 1942, was already taking over Europe, Galen began to consider the possibility that Germany could be defeated in the war. And as the tide of that war began to turn against Germany, he drew up reports revealing failures in Germany's military organization. And these reports apparently infuriated Hitler, who called his findings defeatist. Nevertheless, Galen remained in position, as he remained Hitler's most capable spy master. So he was kept in place. That is right up until April 1945, when, as Hitler's sort of empire crumbled around him, he fired Galen, who was by now a major general. But Galen didn't kind of react the way that you might think. He didn't just go off into a room and put a bullet in his head in the sort of honourable Prussian tradition. He actually continued to use his contacts and amassed as much intelligence on the Soviets as he could. And such was his status and reputation that intelligence reports were still being passed to him from the field, even though he'd been fired. In his 1972 memoirs, slide 3, Alex, in those memoirs, which are entitled The Service, Galen recounts just how only days before the Allies conquered Germany, he and his devoted officers buried 52 steel drums packed with microfilm, which represented the fruits of 6 years of espionage. Now, Galen and his officers then surrendered. Slide 4, please, Alex. They then, Galen is the one actually with the 0 in his chest. They surrendered to the advancing Americans, and Galen was then able to pull off a kind of switch. After he was interviewed by high-ranking US officers, he brokered a deal which protected him from being prosecuted for war crimes in exchange for gathering intelligence on the Soviets. By the end of 1946, Galen was running a US-funded espionage body called the Galen Organization, or ORG, just ORG for short. Galen went on to fill this organization entirely with ex-Nazi officers, some of whom were considered war criminals, but were considered much more useful to the US, alive or at least out of prison. Now, Galen and his organization were basically given free range to pursue their own agenda, whether that be in East Germany or in West Germany. And this was all backed by US Army intelligence. In 1949, Galen's org was officially absorbed into the CIA, which then started to give the group $5 million a year, which was an awful lot of money back in 1949, to fund their activities and their intelligence projects. Now, this went on even though Army counterintelligence, just as in the last case, even though Army counterintelligence reported that Galen's organization was riddled with Soviet moles and that they didn't trust the ex-SS officers in the unit, and that unit contained at least 100 SD, or what we call Gestapo officers. Now, some of the activities of the group were not strictly what you might call those that they were being paid for, but nevertheless were condoned by the CIA. And this mostly included helping Nazi war criminals to flee Europe via the underground escape network called the Rat Line, which we have talked about before. And that include various safe houses and transit camps and fake passports like this one at slide 5. All of this, of course, funded by the CIA. Now, this network helped over 5,000 Nazis to flee Europe, mostly to South America, South and Central America. All the while, Galen continued to supposedly gather intelligence on the Soviets using wartime former informants in Eastern Europe. But overall, what the Galen org often did was simply made up stories that they said were obtained from confessions of POWs returning from the Soviet Union. And one such story was that the Soviet Union were far in advance of the US in their nuclear weapons program. Now, by 1956, as Western Germany started to gain more autonomy over its own affairs, the Galen organization morphed into Germany's intelligence agency, which in English is called the Federal Intelligence Service, a sort of German CIA, you might say. Okay. But by 1968, the old concerns came back to bite Galen, as numerous Soviet moles were kind of exposed within the now Federal Intelligence Service. One of whom was this guy here at slide 6. Apologies for my wife's phone. Yeah, this is Heinz Felf, Galen's longtime deputy, and there were several others who'd worked with Galen for decades. 2 seconds. There we go. Sorry. Now, these revelations resulted in Galen's dismissal. And up until the end of his life, Galen enjoyed the protection of both German and American leaders who were willing to overlook his Nazi past in order to use his skills. And he died in 1979. And as the German newspaper Der Spiegel reported at the time, if there was ignorance on Galen's Nazi past, it was only because no one wanted to know. Kind of looking back at Galen's time working for the CIA and later the Galen org, we now know that much of the intelligence he gathered was false. The Soviet Union was very much aware of his actions, of his activities, and it's known to have fed false information to his network. Now, in addition, many of his stories also had the effect of making tensions between the US and the Soviet Union worse. But at the same time, that raised his organization's standing and perceived usefulness, and it also assisted the sort of rabid anti-communists in the US. His strategies and tactics have had a very long-lasting effect and an influence on modern intelligence practices, particularly in the US and Germany. His major role in the smuggling of former Nazis to South America was kept quiet for decades. There is no doubt that Galen was and remained a committed Nazi, but it served the purpose of the CIA. We'll end on slide 7. Please, Alex. It served the purpose of the CIA, who were able to harvest certain useful Nazis for their own and for the US's secret projects. So that's a little look at Galen, who was yet another element in this sort of overall story.
Thank you very much, Gwen. Oh my, oh my. What a tangled web we begin to weave. So, now, if we go back to the US Army counterintelligence of 1947, and they also concluded that these paperclip Nazis not only had reconstructed their command structure, but were also in communication with Nazis worldwide, all throughout South America. Do you know the one country in South America that never had a Nazi problem? Anyone want to have a guess?
Colombia?
Yeah, Colombia wasn't as big, but I mean, yeah, I would throw Colombia in there. But the one I'm thinking of just had an earthquake.
Ah, good old Venezuela.
is the only South American country that didn't have a Nazi problem after World War II. Coinky dinky, I suppose. Aye. The paperclip Nazis were in contact with other Nazi organizations from South Sweden, Holland, down through Africa. And Galen, of course, was brought into the CIA by Allen Dulles in 1947. That's when US Army counterintelligence ceased to exist. You've done programs, Glenn, about the Left Behind, the Gladioli.
Yeah.
Galen was at the heart of all of that. Galen, in fact, oversaw the entire Eastern European intelligence networks reaching into Russia and throughout the then Warsaw Pact countries, notably including Ukraine. And the Bandera movement was part of that Left Behind organization that fought the Soviets right through until the 50s.
No, I'm going to. I'll tell you why, because I've gone back to
the now then, Allen Dulles, we know, created the CIA, and we know the links Allen Dulles has with the Nazi Party. West German intelligence. He becomes the head of West German fucking intelligence.
Yeah.
But it's not really that unbelievable. When we recall, as we pointed out before, the first head of NATO was a Nazi fucking general. The first head of the EU was a Nazi general. And we have the papers extant that the EU, as it's set up now with the Commission and a puppet fucking parliament, is exactly how Hitler had planned to control Europe after World War II. The first head of NATO, of the UN, sorry, Nazi general. Ah, Donald Tusk, that globalist Polish prime minister who has been saber rattling against Russia recently. His granddaddy was, guess what, Glenn?
Was he perhaps a Nazi?
He was a Nazi general.
Yeah, Nazi general.
Ursula von der
Oh,
fucking crazy, fond of lying. Well, we know her granddaddy was a Nazi general. And isn't it interesting that her two closest childhood friends were Angela Merkel, credibly, possibly Hitler's fucking actual daughter, and Theresa fucking May. Oh yes, because now I'm bringing the UK into this shit. But who could have thunk? Who could have thunk that three innocent teenage girls, Theresa May, what's the worst thing you ever? Oh, skipping through a cornfield in my little Nazi outfit. What's the worst thing you could possibly? What you've done? That was it. But who could have thunk that these three women would go on to be in charge of Germany, the United Kingdom, and the European fucking Union? Obviously, just a coinkydink.
So, yeah.
BlackRock Mertz. Well, his granddaddy was what, Alex?
I wonder. Possibly a Nazi general?
A Nazi general, yes, exactly. Exactly. We shipped Nazi SS by the hundreds of thousands to Canada. We shipped them to Australia. We shipped them to New Zealand. We brought loads of them into the UK. We especially liked the Ukrainians in Ukraine. Someone said it. The current head of MI6, Blaze Metri fucking something Ellie, but that's not really her name, because her real name is Dobrotsky, as in Konstantin Dobrotsky, one of Bandera's closest fucking pals, also known, or AKA, the Butcher of Chevronins. So, now we have proved, I think, beyond a shadow of any fucking doubt, that Nazis infiltrated through paperclip the highest levels of secret space programs, secret weapons programs, the American government structure, the CIA, the FBI, and now we're learning, if we didn't know before, that what we call Western intelligence, the Five Eyes, are actually fucking Nazis going all the way back to Galen. And that the current heads of most European countries either have direct links to the Nazis or to the Zionists. Hence the reason we coined the term Zion Nazi. I would bet you a penny to a fucking £1,000,000 that if you scratched hard enough at Macron, you would find Vichy in his background. And if you scratched hard enough at Blair, you would find Oswald Mosley in his background. And Andy Burnham is just the Blair government part 3. So, what do you think, guys? Am I whistling Dixie? Or do we have a fucking Nazi problem in River City,
Yeah. Well,
aka the Western world?
yeah. Most of it. Yeah, I don't think we're feeling an elephant. We're feeling an octopus because those tentacles are everywhere. I don't know. Let's glance over at Palantir. Who's the head of Palantir in UK? It just happens to be Oswald Mosley's grandson. So the connections are everywhere, and far more than you would just think by blind coincidence. I mean, there's going to be a blind coincidence that there are many people related to German officers, German generals, whatever rank level. But the surprising abundance of those in power who seem to have these connections seems to be, to me, to be far more than just a coincidence.
Repeat your last little bit, because all of a sudden, as soon as you start speaking about Palantir, the gremlins out of nowhere appeared and everything froze, and I couldn't hear what you were saying. I don't know if anyone else could, but just repeat your last couple of sentences, please.
Yeah, I was just happened to be casually mentioning that the head of Palantir UK, the guy who runs Palantir in the UK, is Oswald Mosley's grandson. So just another strange coincidence. I don't know. It's and what I went on to say was it seems far more coincidence that so many of these people in power seem to have these connections, more than just what I was saying was, in general, there are going to be a lot of people who are related to former Nazis, but there is a surprising amount of people in power who are related to senior Nazi figures. So I hope you heard that.
At this juncture, I just want to say hi, Blaze, because I know you're watching. Yes, Granddaddy was a Nazi, and I don't care. Alex, are we starting to see how the dots connect here now?
Yeah, I think I think it's one of these ones. I kind of did it with paper clips in my slide, but I think it's one of these ones where you start connecting all the dots, and they could make a flower, they could make a windmill, but no, they all connect nicely into a swastika, because that's what we are seeing everywhere. And like you say, like Glenn just said, it's odd that what could be a coincidence, but it's odd that coincidence is in the corridors of power, is in the leadership of countries, is in the high echelons, the high places in all these countries. And it gets to a point where, it gets to a point that's way, way beyond any coincidence.
So, we have an ideal opportunity. your house guest, Alex, she doesn't need to appear on camera. But Julie, are you able to connect the dots? I'm because I need to be sure that I'm laying this out clearly for folks so that people are understanding what we're doing here. So ask Julie, is it making sense to her now?
She's not in the room at the moment, but I think she's gone to listen in the other room, so she might appear very shortly.
If she's in the comments, she could put it in the comments what she thinks.
Yeah. I'm getting there.
Yeah, okay.
I'm getting there, she says.
I'm getting there.
Now, does it also now make sense why there is this hatred, this visceral hatred for Russia in the Western world? Why our so-called leaders are all determined, will be or not, to take us into a war against Russia, and why Putin has said they're preparing Operation Barbarossa Part 2.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Glenn?
Absolutely, yeah. It does seem on the face of it when you look at all these European countries, all the sort of ones that are actual countries and not just glorified villages. The ones that you would think of as the old European powers, the ones that are the bedrock of the new I don't know Kalergi plan that turned into the EU. That well, it seems very. Why do you all hate Russia so much? In Britain's case, you can look back and say, well, that's kind of historic. But it starts to make sense when you realise that Barbarossa won, the Great Patriotic War, was never completed. It was never the plan never worked. The Germans were thrown out. The Germans were utterly routed, but it never went away. And what comes along is this strangely familiar sounding plan of what we need to do is balkanize Russia, break it up into little easily controllable, and we can all have a slice. You can all have a piece of it. That sounds very similar to the way that the Nazis wanted to do things. So yeah, it makes complete sense.
Next week, and just so folks know, just so you know, Blaze, because we wouldn't want the 77th Brigade to miss out. Mark it in your fucking diet, right? Next week, the next joining of the dot that I'm going to make is where the Nazis came from. And hold on to your hearts, people. Scrape a Nazi, and you're going to find a Zionist. Hitler had Jewish relatives. Oh, did I say that out loud? The leading Nazis all had Jewish connections. Ask yourself a simple question. How did a corporal from World War I, a failed artist, perhaps with a bit of a gift for the gab, but how did he rise to power? To rise to power takes coinage, takes mighty backing. I think we're going to find next week that all roads might lead back to Israel. fucking hell.
And so then I thought, well, I can walk.
There we go then.
It's like what Bill
Now,
said.
since we're actually under time this week, one chance only. Any of you smart asses in the comments wants to come on and throw in your tuppence and tell us if we're connecting the dots in a way you can understand. Alex will throw out the link and we'll keep it open for about 5-10 minutes. How about that?
From when I actually applied.
Yes, Janet, ask a Nazi.
Yeah.
There you go. The link's out there if anyone wants to come on. Glenn, yeah, I think we're starting to get somewhere, are we not?
Because on the face of it, if you listen, if you've ever listened to the Jewish propaganda, it's as if they're entirely anti-Nazi. We needed Israel because we were all being persecuted. Now I've laid out several times how that wasn't actually the case. It wasn't all of the Jews. There were perhaps some Jews that were more, well, you can look at it as four legs good and two legs bad, almost in an Animal Farm kind of way. There was a great deal of cooperation with the Nazis, which resulted largely in large amounts of people being able to set up this new country. And then, of course, you throw into the mix the Rothschilds as well, which may actually come up in next week's program about Jewish banking and funding. And you can start to see it's even actually evident when people almost without going into all of what we've just been laying out here and what we're going to lay out next week, people have independently come out and said, as far as they can see, that Israel is acting like the Nazis. And it's been, that comparison has been made over and over and over again. So where did this method, modus operandi come from? How come the tactics that the Nazis used seem to have so much resonance with the tactics that the Zionists use? So very possible, very murky, but very, very, very likely that there is a huge connection there, and that we're looking at one animal, not like the guy's feeling the elephant. It's a single animal. I thought we had somebody coming on then. No.
Janet just said maybe we do, I don't know. But Janet pointed out no one ever mentions that the first people that the Nazis genocided weren't the Jews. They were the Gypsies. Gypsy comes from Egyptian, comes from mystery school Egyptian. They were getting rid of some of the competition. They also euthanized, I don't know, the old, the infirm, the mentally frail. Does that sound awfully familiar when it comes to, Richard's in the studio, when it comes to med beds and the MAID program and on his left, just quickly, in Canada. And Alex, you reported very recently on the first teenager that they euthanized, and wasn't that in Germany?
Netherlands.
Netherlands. Close enough.
Mm.
The Netherlands, who are building concentration camps for Russian POWs. The Netherlands just gave 500 cruise missiles. Where did the Netherlands get 500 cruise missiles from? To Ukraine. That's why the Russians are shooting down MiG-29s, because these are not cruise missiles you can fire easily from the ground. They have to be fired from a plane. And now the Russians are saying, go on, take your MiG-29 out. We'll shoot it down from 200 fucking clicks away, you motherfuckers. So, I'll throw out the link one more time, Alex, just in case anyone is brave enough. Glenn,
A point just occurred to me.
Go on.
You can, and I have mentioned this before. The entire funding for the Bolshevik Revolution was Jewish. It was entirely a Jewish plan. What that had the effect of was overthrowing the entire old regime and establishing a new country, establishing a totally different system. And one of the things that the Bolsheviks set about doing after they got in power was killing Christians. Millions upon millions of Christians were killed under the Bolsheviks. So you can see how the Jewish banks fomented the Russian Revolution. But then, not happy just with that, then you have to pit Russia against Germany, Greater Germany, for an even greater expansionist plan that you can see forming. That World War II may not just have been coincidental, not something that just happened. It fits into a bigger scheme, as indeed did World War One, which we've gone into many times. So again,
Alex,
not just one picture.
quickly bring up Albert Pike's letter, Alex, please. Just as you're speaking.
Oh yeah. You must pit those.
And eugenics, as has been pointed out, also ties in Epstein.
Absolutely.
There's just this continual,
Layers.
we don't have enough fucking threads to stretch across the pinboard.
Well, I think we should stop using threads and just get a tin of red paint, because you might as well paint the whole damn pinboard red. because it's not connections, it's a whole sweep of red. So that's what it's starting to feel like.
Yeah, I mean I just all I want people to get today is, one, that we can, through open research, link how Germany might have lost the war, but the Nazis won the war, and how that Zionazi ideology is now what permeates all of the Western world. And it's all part of a much bigger conspiracy.
Yeah.
One that goes back thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it uses compromise, it uses blackmail, it uses death, suiciding to control everything. And every now and then, they tell us a little bit about it. So, Alex, have you found Albert Pike's letter, since no one is going to be brave enough to come on? Read us Albert Pike's letter once again.
The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheist communism. The divergences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that first Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agency of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation... Oh, hang on 2 seconds, sorry. Can't read the end line.
You're all right. That will do that.
Yeah.
If people want to know where we are on that timeline, we're in the midst of the final social cataclysm. Now, some people call it the UN replacement theory. Some people call it mass immigration unchecked. Ah, yes, did we just connect another big fucking dot? And as we've often said, too many people are playing into the agenda. So, I don't know about you guys. I'm going to be keeping my head in a swivel this week because I think we paid the target on our back. But that's what we're here to do. Have you got an international show tonight, Alex?
Yes, we will have, 8 o'clock.
Excellent. Right then, let's do last thoughts. And Glenn, any last thoughts for the audience?
You can't wade halfway into a swamp. You've got to go all the way. Yeah, but if you want to get out of the swamp, you've got to keep going. And I think that's what we're doing. We've been in that swamp for a long time, but we're now, I think, starting to find the bottom again. We've got the footing, and we're starting to know what the swamp's all about. And I think the swamp's a great analogy, because if you look at a swamp, it seems to be all kind of lots of different shit going on. You've got frogs croaking, you've got a terrible smell, you've got but in essence, it is one entity that's operating as a ecosystem, and that's what we're in. We're in this ecosystem that we've now begun, that hopefully people are starting to recognize. And I think each show that in this Octopus series, actually, in this entire Octopus series, can be seen as another clue on the road to what animal we're actually feeling in that room. So we're beginning to realize that it's not a tree, it's not this, it's not that. It might just be an elephant. So I think that's where we are.
Yes, indeed. We're getting close to the moment where Hail Hydra or Slava Ukraine all becomes very, very obvious to people. Alex, last thoughts for the audience and plug tonight's show and the week ahead, please.
Okay. We've called out some of these things. We talked about some of these things before. We talked about Pike's letter before, and yet every time I read it, I see a step further along that agenda. I see a different part of it that we can already point to. They are enacting it as we stand, as we speak, as we go forward in time. And when you think about the whole idea of the Nazis moving forward, of the paperclip Nazis, of the other countries and the many other countries that they embedded themselves within the power structures of, and then you look at Ukraine, you look at Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and you look at the current iconoclasm that's going on there, the removal of every monument to the Soviet victories over the Nazis, to the liberations. What was a liberation and what was celebrated as liberation? Now you have a current iconoclasm going where they're removing every monument to that liberation. And you kind of see the people that have kind of been hiding for years, have been tolerating seeing celebrations of their defeat, and now using this excuse, this opportunity to remove that from the public memory, to turn that into a bad thing, to turn that into something else, just as we saw in Canada, a standing ovation to somebody because they were fighting against Russia and were repainting a history that fighting against Russia is a good thing, and ignoring the fact that fighting against Russia means fighting for the Nazis. We're repainting history. People have always said 1984. I've always seen Animal Farm as much in the way they act as I've seen 1984. And we truly are seeing the way the different parts, the way the pigs morph into the men, the way they teach us, the way they want us to hear it. They treat us like they can control us with the whole 2 legs good, 4 legs bad, or 4 legs good, 2 legs better. And they change the narrative, they change meanings every step of the way. And we're coming to the end of it. We're coming to the end of Pike's letter. We're coming full circle. Soon it will be, well, the liberators, the Allies good, the Nazis better. That is where they are taking us to, and we can see it. But we will be back tonight at 8 p.m. I should have Angela on with me then, and we will be looking at some of the news stories, some of the things that are going on in this world. It's Sunday now, so I'll be back on Tuesday at 10 p.m. after that with Gleam in the North. Ian will be back Wednesday at 7 with Smokem. Glenn will be back Friday 7:30 with The Man in Black. And then we will see you. And you've already had an idea what we're talking about next week, so do your own looking into it. Do your own research ready for next week, and we will see you next Sunday at 1:50 with more from the Lone Gunman.
Man looked to pig, and pig to man. And the more they looked, the more they could not see any difference. That's how Animal Farm ends, people.
Yeah.
Oh well, here we are then. It's a wonderful sunny afternoon. I have a beach 30 yards from this door that I think I need to go and visit for a little while. We live in very dark times, but we are the resistance. And none of us are suicidal, please, by the way. So, with that, do me all a gigantic favour, hang about for the song because it's brilliant, and then do a great big Sunday afternoon bucket off. Alex, play the song.
We are the last Jacobites, proud and free, will not be bought nor bend the knee. Like Arbroath's cry and freedom's flame, we rise as one and stake our claim. Oh, side by side, through storm and fight, we stand as one in truth and right. From every shore we answer the call, Clan Jacobite, we rise or fall. It matters not our skin or land, but hearts as one and hand in hand. The blood we share is brave and bold, in woven dreams and legends old. Oh, side by side, through storm and fight, we stand as one in truth and right. From every shore we answer the call, Clan Jacobite, we rise or fall. I am you, and you are me, a thread within this tapestry. For hopes of all, for every name, we light the fire, we keep the flame. No sea can part us, nor the land. Together strong, we proudly stand. With courage, truth, and spirits high, we pledge our oath beneath the sky. Oh, side by side, through storm and fight, we stand as one in truth and right. Raise the